What do you think of when I say the word Pokemon? Just Pikachu? Or the adventures and shenanigans of one Ash Ketchum? A trading card game ruined by morally bankrupt scalpers? Your own adventure in the generation that got you into the series? The deep and nuanced and brutal competitive scene? The thriving YouTube content community? Lieutenant Surge actively trying to murder a child? What? Not that last thing? Well, you clearly haven't read Pokémon Adventures. If you're familiar with the Pokémon franchise, the games, the shows, reading Pokémon Adventures is like looking into a funhouse mirror. The Pokémon world is there, it is recognizable, but it's sort of distorted and twisted in really weird ways. Some big ways, some little ways, some subtle ways, some blatant ways. So that's what we're going to be looking at in this new series of videos. The major moments and aspects of Pokémon Adventures that divert from the well-established, family-friendly norms of the franchise. I said in the outro of my last video that these ones would be a little bit different, and I was planning on doing these a little bit different, but I changed my mind. I've got issues 1 to 23, missing 19, 20, 21, and 22 for some reason. So I was going to do 3 books per video, but I decided against that. Instead, I'm just going to do the first 7 in detail, with each book getting its own video, because that's sort of red, blue, yellow Gen 1 arc. Then I might do like 1 bonus episode covering everything else in the other books that I have. It's simple, and now I don't have to spend like 50 quid buying the books that I don't have. Pokémon Adventures is a long-running manga series set in its own distinct universe of the Pokémon franchise. First coming out way back in 1997 and still going today. It's almost as old as me. Following a similar pattern to the anime, starting a new arc in a new region when a new generation comes out in the real world. Though it rotates its main cast far more than the anime did, with each arc's main characters being based on the player characters of each game. Story-wise, it's closer to the games than anything else, with the arc that we'll be covering following a young Pokemon trainer named Red as he journeys through the Kanto region, catching Pokemon, completing the Pokédex, collecting gym badges, and dealing with Team Rocket. But that summary might give the wrong impression. This isn't Pokemon Origins. It is far from a one-to-one adaptation of the Gen 1 games. And where it diverts from the stories of the game, boy does it divert. Though the big man himself, the creator Satoshi Tajiri, has gone on record saying, "This is the comic that most resembles the world I was trying to convey." Lieutenant Surge actively trying to murder a child. But the protagonist of the Sword and Shield arc is called Henry, so respect. Before we get to where Adventures throws a spanner in the Pokemon works though, I just thought I'd give my quick thoughts on the book. I think you can tell from my tone that there is a huge novelty here. A novelty that genuinely does not get old as you're reading this. It's really fun seeing just how balls to the walls and edgy and violent this can get, knowing the overall white bread, perfectly smooth, perfectly inoffensive vibe of Pokemon as a whole. Can it get too much of those things though? Can it get too balls to the walls, too edgy, too violent? It could, but I don't think it does. It's really more just weird than anything, but weird in a fun way. Weird in a way that, if you are familiar with the franchise, kind of just makes you go like, what? The story itself is not all that groundbreaking, especially as you've probably seen some version of it in another medium. And it's the same deal with the characters. Red is the plucky underdog, Blue is the cocky rival. It's same old, same old. I know that this is literally a pointless thing to say, but it is the differences that really set this apart, that let it stand on its own 2 feet, that make it genuinely quite good. Now, I have read this before, and if I recall correctly, the story does get a bit too layered, a bit too unwieldy for its own good, kind of like the sort of the last 2 A Song of Ice and Fire books. But here at the beginning, things are simple and straight, light and breezy. Any more of a detailed review here would probably spoil some of the diversion points I want to cover later in this video, so let's just leave the review here. It is a good bit of weird Pokemon fun. If you're a Pokemon fan and you haven't read this, you absolutely should, if just for enjoying the diversions. Okay, on to those diversions. The first thing I'd like to mention is a question posed by the cover. This is Red, our main character. Which of these 3 Pokemon do you think is his starter? Is it Bulbasaur, the actual starter? No. Is it Pikachu, the mascot for the whole series and a different universe's protagonist's very famous starter? No. It is Poliwhirl. This is already a little odd. Yes, there is precedent set in the anime wherein a person could have any Pokemon as a starter. Brock's starter is Onyx, for example. But when it's your primary character, you kind of want their first Pokemon to be one of the super marketable starters or mascots. Not Poliwhirl. Not that I dislike Poliwhirl, I quite like Poliwhirl. But in the eyes of the mainstream, it's no Charmander, it's no Eevee. And that's not even mentioning that it's already evolved from a Poliwag. A protagonist's first evolution should be a momentous occasion, but here it happened off screen before the series even started, and all we get is a tiny little flashback to it later in the book. Sticking on the unceremonious nature of this, in the first chapter, Red catches a Nidorino. Again, the protagonist's first on-screen capture of a Pokemon should be a big occasion, but here it's like, yay! Moving on. And he doesn't even use the Nidorino. When he does get the Bulbasaur on the cover in the second chapter of the book, that's treated like the first addition to his team. And I'm like, what about Nidorino? Don't you want a Nidoking? Those are really good for Kanto speedruns, I think. You can see the Pokemon in their Pokeballs, which has always been a sort of question that hangs over the entire franchise. What do Pokemon do in their Pokeballs? Do they just become like a ball of energy? Do they have a little house or environment in there? Well, Adventures is here to tell you they're sort of just shrunk down and crammed in, which, when you think about it, is probably the simplest answer to the question. Occam's razor and all that. They appear to be in a conscious state, though, as we can see here with Bulbasaur, which cannot be pleasant. We see Pokemon poo, which I'm not sure is addressed in any other medium. Pokemon Adventures confirms it though, Pokemon do poo. And if you're thinking you've seen that in the anime, you're probably thinking of the weirdly poo-centric Digimon. A punch is thrown in the 3rd chapter, and yes, physical violence isn't completely alien to Pokemon. Your rival scoop slams you over that ledge in Little Root Town, and Ash goes full Inoue against Mewtwo. But it is few and far between. It is not few and far between here, and Ash throwing hands at Blue so early on sets the scene beautifully. The badge boost is mentioned, which is absolutely not a thing in the anime, but is a thing, albeit a not very well publicized thing in the games. They even got the effect of the boulder badge correct. Graveler's not got legs and floats like a Geodude, which I think is quite funny, and is a result, I think, of these early books working off the sort of janky Gen 1 sprites and really early Sugimori art before the designs were sort of really nailed down, which will also explain why Charmander's got sort of ridges on its back. Pikachu successfully uses an electric attack on an Onix, something anime fans will be glad to see is in this medium too. Though there aren't any sprinklers involved this time. Oh, and it results in this happening to the Onix. Is it dead? Red captures a Pokemon belonging to someone else. This is not possible in any medium unless serious shenanigans are involved. But here he just casually catches a Gyarados belonging to Misty that he just keeps, and is another one that doesn't really end up on his team, at least not yet. I believe it does become a thing later. This is where the gotta catch 'em all tagline should really be addressed, in that Red goes about his business a lot more like a player character in the game trying to complete the Pokédex than Ash only catching a few Pokemon and keeping a close-knit team. The anime maybe did try to have Gary act like the characters here, at least early on, but it was only really properly approached like 25 years later with Go in Pokemon Journeys. Personally, I prefer the way Ash caught Pokemon. Somehow, Mickey Mouse is a thing in this world. Koga is a member of Team Rocket, but wait, put a pin in that because he's now injecting his Rhyhorn, yes, Koga has a Rhyhorn, with a chemical that makes it evolve. What is this? Forced evolution is a subject approached with the red Gyarados in Gen 2, but I think that's done with like sound waves or something. But here my man just injects his Pokemon with steroids, I guess. Let's just say it was one level away from evolution and he had some liquefied rare candy. Misty is rich for some reason and lives in a mansion with an army of maids like she's a Grantham or something. And now we get back to attempted murder. Lieutenant Surge has just thrown an unconscious Poliwhirl into the sea, which, if Poliwhirl can't breathe underwater, could be considered attempted Pokemon murder too. And he's got Red trapped in this electric force field. And then this happens. I don't care what you say, this is a man trying to murder a boy. And if that's not enough, he then proceeds to chuck the unconscious boy into the ocean too. This is... well, it's a bit much, isn't it? Also, you may have noticed me mention Misty and Surge without talking about their gyms. Well, the gym badges seem to be more of an incidental goal of Red's, not his primary objective. He does battle Misty at the gym, but no badge comes of it. And as you could probably tell, Surge is a bad guy and doesn't seem to have any involvement with the gym at all. So we've passed Vermilion City and we've only got one badge. When we get to Lavender Town, we get some real Pokemon body horror. 3 words that should never be said together. Here's a Psyduck skeleton, and here's another Psyduck with its eye hanging out and its ribcage visible. This is not okay. Team Rocket member Koga shows back up, keep that pin in that, and he too tries to do some child murdering, this time with acid. But he gets what's coming to him and his Arbok is sliced in half. What? Yeah, this is probably the most famous panel of the whole series. Blue's Charmeleon slicing Koga's Arbok in half so we can see its muscle and bone. The brutal on-screen death of a Pokemon. This is very much not okay. And that's about the last deviation from quote-unquote standard Pokemon that we get in this book. Do you see what I mean now about the novelty of this? I don't want to take anything away from the artwork and the story and the characters and the ideas and the world, but the real lore here is turning the page and thinking, just what on earth am I going to see next? Will it be a cute little story about a mischievous Pikachu? Or will it be some kind of brutal attempted murder or gruesome death? Who knows, but it has really gotten me hooked. It is so clear that there was a lot less oversight on this project than other Pokemon properties. Naturally, I'd say, I mean, the anime was always going to be the flagship, and therefore it got much more attention to be put in a state ready for the mainstream. But I kind of wish it wasn't. I kind of wish we lived in a world where the anime was like this manga. Completely mental. I cannot wait to see what the second book has in store for us. Hello, thanks a lot for getting to the end of the video. Like and subscribe, all that good stuff. Sorry about missing last week. This video should have come out last Monday. Just had some it sort of kicked off plumbing wise, and it was all quite stressful, so I wasn't really in the mindset to be writing a video about Pokemon Adventures, but that has all been resolved and everything is fine. Next video, movie 1. I will see you there.